everyone. Morella Sands again for another episode of BTS, Behind the Scenes of Phantom Force, which, as I said previously, is so much turned out to be a behind the scenes as so much as a chatting about paranormal stuff. So this particular episode is going to be in the third man factor. If you've had a third man experience and you want to talk about it in the comments, I would love to hear about it. I have never had this kind of experience myself. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my mother kind of had one. I'm not sure it technically makes the definition, but I think it sort of does. But a lot of people have had these kind of experiences. And this particular book, which I have shared with my students on occasion, Third Man Factor, talks about this. And now this book is explaining it in terms of neurology and psychology and things, and not paranormal. But I think once you've heard about the third man, if you didn't know about it before, you might realize that some haunting things seem to meet the criteria here. So the third man factor is named after a section of T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland, and I'll read you these lines. Who is the third who walks always beside you? When I count, there are only you and I together. But when I look up ahead the white road, there is always another one walking beside you. Who is that on the other side of you? So the third man, technically here in the poem, is a third because there's three people there if you count the third man, was actually based on a story of Edward Shackleton's. If you don't know about Shackleton and his adventures in the Antarctic, you should really read about it because it's fascinating. But he and three others, when they get to toward the end of their adventures, they're having to climb over a mountain to try to get help for their stranded fellows. At some point, the fog rolls in and they can't see down the mountain, and they just, they're kind of at the end of their wits. They don't have any equipment. They've been, lost to sea basically for over a year. They're tired. They're worn out. They realize there's nothing left to do. They just sort of like slide down this slope, not knowing if it'll drop them off a cliff at some point or if it'll just slide them down to the bottom of the mountain. They do slide down to the bottom of the mountain. They get to a whaling station, tell them, hey, this is Shackleton, and the rest of my men are stuck on this other island. You need to go rescue them. And Shackleton ends up saving everybody. But the thing is, during this journey over the mountain, Shackleton and his companions, he had two companions, so they knew there were three of them. I think I might have said four before, but the fourth one was the third man. They all had this sense there's a fourth person with them. And none of them speak about it at first because nobody wants to be seen as crazy. But when they start comparing notes later, and I think it might have been years later, each one realizes that there weren't three men climbing over the mountain. There were four, and we don't know who that fourth one was because we only sensed it. We didn't ever see this person. So technically, it should be the fourth man factor, but T.S. Eliot turned it into the third man, and that's what we call it today. So this is a kind of experience where you sense another person, and it could be a voice or it could be a sensed presence. I don't know that anyone generally sees anything. To hear things is normally what happens. That's what happened to my mother when she was very, very small, like maybe 3. She saw what she thought was a rolled up rug, and as she's walking toward it, a voice apparently told her there's poison in that rug, and so she stopped. And about that time, her mother came around the house. She had a hoe because she'd been working in the garden, and she sees the rug. It's actually a huge copperhead, and she screams and she runs and she uses the hoe to chop the snake into little pieces because you don't want a copperhead with your kids, right? So what was that voice that told my mother there's poison in that rug, right? So that's the kind of thing that happens to a lot of people who are in distress. A lot of the stories in this book are from people who are mountain climbers or they're scuba divers. They're alone and they're in great distress. They are in some kind of life-threatening situation, and they will hear a voice. Sometimes over the right shoulder, sometimes over the left shoulder. Sometimes they can't tell where it's from. Sometimes it's clearly male, sometimes clearly female, sometimes can't tell. But a voice comes and says, do this, or do that, or whatever. And if you follow the voice, you generally, it seems, you survive. He does list one time that someone didn't follow the voice and didn't survive, and we know that because the person was keeping a journal. So he was climbing a mountain. The weather at some point changed, and he basically died of exposure on the mountain. Excuse me. And he's writing his journal. There's this voice that's telling me, get off the mountain now. And but I don't see any reason I need to do that. I'm going to keep climbing. And so he died, and we can tell from his journal entry that he was ignoring the third man. So if the voice tells you something like that, then you should probably do it. Now, this could be explained in a lot of different ways. You could say you have a guardian angel. You could say maybe there's a spirit of a climber who tries to save people because they died on a mountain. You could have a story like that. But what the author's kind of going for in this book is that humans really aren't geared to be alone. And our brains really, really want us to be with a companion. We're also, of course, programmed to see faces. That's why, pareidolia exists, or you see faces everywhere. Sometimes I send my students out. I'm like, go take a picture of a face. Where's pareidolia telling you there's a face? And they come back with, sewer grates or something on the side of a building or an arrangement of branches in the tree. You can see a face pretty much anywhere because your brain is looking for that particular pattern all the time. Our brains love patterns. And a pattern of a human face, our brain's right on it. But in this case, what he's basically thinking is that you're alone most of the time. Shackleton obviously wasn't, but still you may be in distress, maybe something going on, and maybe your brain has picked up on something. Maybe like in the guy who ignored the third man, maybe he noticed some clouds forming in the distance that looked like storm clouds, or he could tell the weather was about to change, but he just wanted to get up the mountain and realized, too late, that he didn't have enough time, probably. But at some point, his brain's like, we need to get off of here, we need to get off of here, this is dangerous. And he was too used to ignoring, when you're thinking in your head. And so the posit that this guy is saying in this particular book is that maybe your brain then decides, what? On a subconscious level, obviously you're not thinking this out loud. We need an outside authority. People will obey authority. I mean, there have been plenty of psychological studies that show that. So an outside authority, over your shoulder perhaps, or just somewhere outside of you, will then tell you, get off the mountain, or do this, or whatever, or there's poison in that rug. But there will be something else that sounds outside yourself. It's still your brain, but it's like your brain is throwing its voice to be more authoritative, and it's telling you how to survive. So this is a really fascinating book. I recommend it to anybody who wants to learn more about psychology and how things might work in the brain, and reasons why your brain just might invent an invisible companion for you when you're in trouble. It's trying to save your life. Your brain is trying to save your life, and it has maybe some psychological tricks up its sleeve that you don't even really think about, and maybe have not been studied so far too much, but they're there and they can be used. I have seen several people talk about in psychology, it's generally more adaptive to like sea tigers when there aren't tigers. Right? So your brain is looking for something out of the corner of your eye. It thinks it sees a lion or a wolf or something. If it is a lion or a wolf, you've just been warned. Maybe you can save your life. If it's not a lion or a wolf and it turns out to be a branch, no harm, no foul. Right? So, but if you don't see the lion or the wolf, you're lunch. So your brain is kind of geared in a way to see things or hear things that aren't there if it might help you survive, because the consequence of not hearing it when it's really there could be life or death. Now, on a ghost hunt or something, is that possibly going to help you hear or see things when you're not really in danger? Maybe, maybe not, I don't know, but a lot of people seem to get pretty frightened on these ghost hunts. I know one thing I find a little annoying, just put this out there, that I keep finding these YouTube videos of people who think they filmed something paranormal, and cool, I'm all into that. I like to watch the videos and see what they think they found. The trouble is they'll be talking about, I'm here, I've heard this building is haunted, and so I'm here to try to get something on tape, and they're moving around this house or abandoned school or asylum, wherever it is they are. And then they think they see something, and then they immediately turn around and run away. Like, they'll be, oh my God, they turn around, they run, and all you're seeing is this jumbled as they are like running down some steps, and of course the camera's looking, you can't really tell. And maybe there's 3 frames of possibly something that was down the hallway, which makes me think either A, it's their friend, and they couldn't focus on it any longer, you would tell that their friend's in a costume or something, or B, I'm disappointed because you just told me 2 minutes ago that your whole reason for being out here is to film something paranormal, and as soon as you see something you think might be, you could have just startled yourself with a shadow, you don't know, you turn around and run away. I mean, get your ass back in the building and keep filming, because that's why you're there, right? You wanted to get something on film. So I hope you found that interesting, and if you have had, as I said, a third man experience, I would love to hear about it. Put it down in the comments. As I said, I have not, but I like to hear about them. I like the stories. I like to know what people are experiencing. So other people might be interested in hearing what you're experiencing as well. So let us know. And otherwise, we'll see you next time on this channel. Remember to hit like and subscribe if you like this, and the little bell notifications so you know when I put up more videos. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.